The 730 Project, Day 63. Well, my friends, do you know what this little piece of paper says? Probably not, because there's a lot of fine print on there. This says that I successfully completed the testing requirements for my technician class amateur radio license. So, after all the stress and wondering whether the attention deficit was going to be an issue in me retaining information, I passed. Most of the people in our class passed the first time. There were 3 or 4 that did not, but when the rest of us were leaving the testing site, they were retaking the test, so I hope that they got things figured out so that they could successfully complete this test as well. It was a little more intense than I thought it was. There are what are called volunteer examiners, and there's a separate person, I think, who is a volunteer exam coordinator, and they have to undergo special training to do what they do. And there are several different versions of the test from that pool of 453 questions, and they had us in a big room and they said, okay, spread out so you're not tempted to talk to each other and copy and things like that, which they said wouldn't do any good anyway, since we all had different versions of the test. And then there's like this long numeric code that tells which version of the test you have. So they say, oh, we need this answer key to correct this test. And, you have to get a specific number that registers you with the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, which is the organization that outlines all of the regulations for amateur radio. And it was just kind of intense. It's like, okay, if you put this number down wrong, it's going to delay everybody in your group. Like, oh my gosh, okay. If your mailing address is, not right, and the FCC tries to mail you some kind of communication, if you don't respond and it gets returned to them, you could lose your license after you have it. It was just a little, it's a little intense, and then trying to remember all the things we needed to remember. But anyway, the test went well, and all you get told is whether you pass or not. And if you pass, you get this piece of paper. And then in a week, usually within a week or 2 weeks, I'm really tired. All the paperwork gets verified and filed with the FCC, and then you're issued a call sign, which is what you use to identify yourself when you're on the air with amateur radio. And call signs are very, very personal. And, I didn't used to understand, I would see some people would have maybe like a license plate cover on their car that had their call sign, and they'd have an antenna on their car. Sometimes their personalized license plate would be their call sign. And I was like, well, okay, I guess that's kind of weird, but now I get it. I think I might do something like that. Once the call sign is issued, you can apply for a vanity call sign and customize what the letters that you're going to identify yourself with are. And I know what I want to do for my call sign. I don't know whether it's available. I'll have to check once I get my FCC issued call sign. But it's, you apply for it, and if it's available, then it's yours, and it becomes part of your identity, I guess. A lot of times when ham operators introduce themselves, they'll say, this is my name, this is my call sign. The volunteer examiners had shirts that had their first name and their call sign embroidered on it. And there are different groups that you can join once you've got your call sign after you've been licensed. And Some of them are strictly for, the hobby aspect of ham radio, amateur radio. Some of it's community service oriented, like there are a couple of groups that focus on being prepared to help with emergency communications in case of a natural disaster or major, incident where other forms of communication might not be available. And one of our instructors for the class actually spent about a month after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans providing those emergency communications. And sometimes it's relaying messages to other, emergency responders in the area or groups that are working with, helping people, whether it's, cleanup or recovery efforts, things like that. Sometimes it's relaying messages from further away. There's just a lot of really cool technology that goes into amateur radio, and I'm excited to be able to explore that and to be potentially be of service to my community with joining the local groups that work with the emergency communication. Service is a big part of my life. It's very important to me. So this is just another way that I can potentially be of service. So I'm really tired though. It's was quite a journey to get to where the the testing location was, and it's a very interesting trip. I won't go into detail, but excuse me. So yeah, here's to in a couple of months there is a class for the next level of licensing. There are 3 levels, and so within the next 4 months, the group that I took this class with is planning on having the next 2 levels of the class available. So I plan on going all the way because this is really amazing to me. And with each level of licensing, you get additional privileges on what parts of bandwidth that you're able to that you're allowed to operate on. And during different times of year, potentially you can talk to people around the world using radio signals, and that's just really cool. And yeah, I know we have, like today we've got the technology to use a cell phone or chat on the internet or something to do the same thing, but this is amateur radio has been around for over 100 years. It's what, I'm not remembering my dates, I think 1893 when Nikola Tesla filed the first patent for wireless radio. A lot of people in this country are told that it was Marconi who patented the radio in 1895, but Tesla beat him to it by 2 years. But that gets lost in our history lessons. Anyway, amateur radio operators were not far behind with that. And it's, it was very high tech for a long time, and it's still high tech because there are ham radio operators that design and build satellites that are in low Earth orbit that, that we can bounce signals off of and use as repeater systems for transmitting messages. And there are internet protocols now that assist in doing certain things with different aspects of the hobby. Anyway, kind of getting into the weeds here on this one. Anyway, I'm exhausted, but I'm very excited about this. And now I'm going to Disney World. It's not entirely true, but so I'm looking forward to this new adventure. So this has been day 63. I will see you back here on day 64.